And welcome back. We are continuing the College Board question bank uh, again with linear functions. There are approximately 87 of these things, maybe a little less. As you can see, maybe you can't see, there's a count of 88 pages in this document. We've downloaded all of the linear functions from the question bank as of April 15th, 2024, and I'm going to go ahead and do all of them. So let's go and dive in. This is the 16th question in the question bank. If you go do them in order, ending code is 815. That's how I'm referencing these. We've got a linear function. These are all going to be linear functions. G of x equals negative x plus 8. And they ask for g of 0. We can just recognize that to be the y-intercept. So that should be D. Don't overthink it. Or you could just plug in 0 for x and see that indeed it does pop out an 8. We got a function again, f of x equals 4x. What value of x does it equal 8? This time they give you a y value, so we say 8 equals 4x. Divide that bad boy over, and we get 2 equals x. So it's a number input problem. Ranked easy difficulty, so not too bad there. We got a graph interpretation finally. Haven't seen too many of these so far. It's a linear function, of course. I'll zoom in just a tiny bit here. So line graphed in the xy plane below. Well, the cab ride, don't really care about that. Cab ride y, so that's the cost, is the y value in a certain period during non-peak hours based on the number of miles traveled. So miles traveled is x, cost is y. We see that on the axes. This information up top is often skippable. If I'm doing this for real under a timed condition, I almost always skip this and go straight to the end, read the question. According to the graph, what is the cost of each additional mile traveled? We should understand that that means the slope. For each additional mile, when x increases by 1, what is the effect on the cost, the y? When x increases by 1, so 18, a phrase to remember, a definition, when x increases by 1, y increases by m. And for those who've been following along with the videos, you will remember that phrase from earlier, I believe. We may have encountered that already. So we have our definitions here, slope, y-intercept. Some more definitions here with point slope form. I suppose this can be the definition for this video. When x increases by 1, y increases by m, the slope. Okay, so if I want the slope of this linear function, I would say, okay, let's just zoom in on that. And you can zoom in on the Blue Book app. That is a functionality that they built in. I believe you hold Control plus or Command plus if you're on an Apple device. So change in y goes up. Let's just first get our scale here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it goes up 2 over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Don't trust the boxes to be exactly 1 to 1. You always want to double check because sometimes the boxes represent 2 units, sometimes they represent a half. They were nice on this one, and it is a 1-to-1 match. Goes up 2 over 1. So the slope is 2. 19. The slope is 2, or answer A. I forgot to put the question codes here. 5D9 and 910. That'll help us with verifying our answers at the end of the video. 815 was that one. 815, 910. Oh, I see what it did. 5D9. That's A. Question 19. Reboot that. Question 19. Pardon my handwriting. All right, we got a word problem, kind of. All right, what do we have here? Team of workers has been moving cargo off a ship. Who cares? The equation below models the approximate number of tons of cargo, Y. That remains after X. So Y is tons, X is hours. What is the best interpretation of the x-intercept? Well, the x-intercept is when Y is 0, so that means that the tons of cargo remaining is 0. That means they've moved all of it. The y-intercept is D, so that's not the x-intercept. 120 tons of cargo at the beginning is our y-intercept. We want at the end. Team will have moved all cargo in 4.8 hours. Sure, team has been moving 4.8 tons of cargo per hour. No, that's not even the slope. 25 tons of cargo per hour is the slope. So by elimination, it must be, again, A. Getting a lot of A's on these linear functions. We're eliminating B because that is relative to the slope, the phrasing of it. The cargo per hour again in C. C is the slope, and D we determined was the y-intercept. So by elimination, that leaves us A as our x-intercept. Don't even have to do the math on it. Just trust that it must be. All right, we have kind of a point slope form, or you might look at this as a slope intercept form that's been shifted. Again, I forgot the question code. 971. Question 20. 40F. Linear function with a horizontal shift to the right, 273.15. If we looked at this as y, or slope point slope form, or point slope, however you want to say it, point slope form, we would understand that this coordinate point is 273.15, 32, 273.15, comma, 32. Because recall that our point slope form is this guy, and if we move that 32 over, the k value is 32, the h value is 273.15, and the slope is 9/5. So what are they even asking for here? Function gives temperature, who cares? Jump into the question. If a temperature increased by 9.1, by how much did the temperature increase? So we don't actually care about that point that they give us. They want to know the amount of change. So all we're going to do is we're going to recognize that the 9/5 is our rate of change for each 1 degree of Kelvin. So I'm going to multiply that by 9.1. We could plug this into a calculator. I've been showing people how to do this without a calculator. You could do that as 91 over 10 over 5. 9/5 times 91 over 10 is going to be what? So draw that a little nicer here. 9/5 times 91 over 10. 9 times 91 over 50. Nothing reduces as far as I can tell. 9 times 91, if you want to do it that way, you can. It's not too bad. 819 over 50. It's almost like they want you to use a calculator. But what is that approximately going to be? It's 250s for each 100. There's 800, so 16 point something. So that yet again is A. And for those who didn't follow what I did with the division there, that trick, I said, okay, there's 250s for each set of 100, and there's 800s here. So 8 times 2 is 16, because you're going to get 250s for each 100. Think about that. If it's confusing to you, think about it, and you'll make sense of it. And I Didn't really care about the decimals. Look how far apart these whole numbers are: 16, 48, 475, and 507. There's no way you're going to accidentally get the like that decimal's not going to make a difference in your answer, right? So just get the whole number and move on with your life. All right, that was 20, 21. We'll go ahead and do 10 questions in this video. We'll go up to 25, making good time. All right, 21, code 19D. Linear function again, 7x minus 84. All of the answer choices have a y value at 0. So even without reading the question, we know we're looking for an x-intercept. When y equals 0, that in a linear function, or any function really, is an x-intercept. So we can kind of shortcut this question and just say, okay, let's plug in 0 for y. And we get 7x minus 84 equals 0. Add the 84, divide by 7, equals x. That I believe is going to be 12. No negatives on it, so it's got to be D. Okay, question 22. Oh, I'm zoomed way out on my thing. That's okay. 22. FE9. We've got a XY table here. Remember, the f of x is just a fancy way of saying y. So XY table given. We already know that it's linear, and I believe they tell us, they tell us it's f of x equals mx minus 28. They're basically telling us the y-intercept is negative 28, but then they're asking for m. M, we recall, is the slope. So they just want the slope, change in y, divided by change in x. Always start with your definitions. So change in y, 137 minus 82, over change in x, which is just 5 in this case. That's easy enough to calculate just by looking at it. 130 to 80 is a change of 50, and 7 to 2 is another 5, so 55 over 5 is 11. And again, you are allowed a calculator on this test. You do not have to do it in your head, but I'm choosing to. 23 is BC9. Graph of the function gives a total cost y for a certain video game. Fine. X games. So X is the number of games, Y is the cost again. So you'll notice this trend. X is the number of things, Y is the cost for those things. That's a common SAT format. Best interpretation of the slope. So it's the cost per game, right? Y is the cost for a system plus X games. So the slope is the cost per game. The y-intercept must be the cost of the system. And yeah, the video game system costs $100. Yep. The video game system is $25. No. Each game costs $100. Wow. No. We would expect our slope to be much steeper if that were the case. It would go from 0, 100 to 1, 200, and that's clearly false. So A must be a true by elimination. Again, I didn't bother doing the math on that because we eliminated each of the wrong answers. Again, each game costs 25. I'm not going to calculate that. Move on. The video game system costs $100. That is true. That is the y-intercept. But they want to know the slope, not the y-intercept. The system costs $25. No, that's not true. We would expect that to be down here. Each game costs $100. Then, as I said before, we would expect this slope to be much steeper, going up $100 each x, because again, we established that x is the number of games and y is the cost. If we want to set this up as an expression, we can say cost equals, let's see, number of games times the dollars per game. Dollars per game is the slope in this case. At number of games they establish is x, and the cost is y. So we essentially have y equals x times m, or in standard form you'd flip that, but sure. So the cost per game must be the slope. All right. And we don't care what that cost per game is, we just care that it's phrased that way. 23, 24. We got all the E's, E, E, C. Okay, looking a little more complicated. It is finally a hard question, 3 pips in the difficulty. F and G are defined as linear functions there. 1/4 x minus 9. Ooh. 9. 3/4 x plus 21. What's the question even asking? H is f plus g. What is the x-coordinate of the x-intercept? Remember, that's when y equals 0 at the x-intercept. So we're going to go ahead and add these together to get h of x. We can add straight down. They made this really easy, so 1/4 x plus 3/4 x is 4/4 x, or just x. Negative 9 plus 21 is the same thing as 21 minus 9, so that's positive 12. And we want y to equal 0. Subtract the 12, nothing to divide by. And you can indeed get negative answers for these fill-in-the-blank questions. All right, last question for this video. Doing okay on time. We're still about 15 minutes in, 16 minutes. We've got a graph again. Graph showing the number of candy bars in a certain machine wraps with label x seconds. So we have time on the x, number of bars on the y, estimated number of candy bars the machine wraps per second. That's again slope. So this is question 25. Code 295. A slope question. So change in y over change in x. Just pick some easy points. We have 280 and 4160. 280, 4160. Change in y over change in x. Change in y is 80, change in x is 2. So the slope of this thing is 40, or b. All right, that's going to be the last question for this video. Let's go ahead and check our work. Get back up there. Whoop. Neat and tidy notes, of course. All right, so code 815 is D. D, yep. 910 should be 2. 5D9 is A. Good. 971 also A. 40F is also A. Scroll my notes. 19D got D. FE9 got 11. Number 23 BC9 we got A. Yep. EEC negative 12. And 295 we got B. Excellent. Yeah, I was accidentally zoomed way out on that, so those notes ended up being a lot longer. All right. Hopefully you learned something. If you've been coming along with us, hopefully some of this stuff was fairly easy for you by now. We'll be continuing on in the next video. Thank you for watching. If you think of any easier ways to do these things, if you think of any shortcuts that I had missed, please comment them below. Engage in the chat, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.